So my name is Alicia, and I find myself here at DCRIT because I'm passionate about a lot of things. I have a background in architecture and social work, and most of my work has been in the architecture capacity in an architecture firm, which you'll see some of that work in the coming slides. But I'm at a moment where I'm realizing that my career doesn't necessarily have to be linear. And in this moment, my passions are not prioritizing themselves, and it's becoming an issue. So, in an effort to trust this moment and let the chips fall where they may, I've come to DCRIT and here tonight to just simply talk about shit I like. I like thinking about space and how our spatial realities can be awakened to profoundly challenge our perceptions of what we know to be true. Like a project I did on redesigning the infrastructure of suburbs into massive towers that integrate commerce and living side by side. I like thinking about legacies of all sorts, like the legacy of my grandparents, Charlie and Inez Hill, who raised their 8 children on a farm in Arkansas, a farm I'm meant to inherit, but I'm also interested in drawing links to legacies that are unseen and abstract as well. For instance, the legacy of soil. The legacy of soil in my family, it's a substance that provided for all 8 of my aunts and uncle to be first-generation college students. Graduates actually, of a Black World War II vet and a school teacher. Soil also holds the blood of those racially persecuted in the South, a legacy that still haunts the collective memories of family members as they quietly tell me stories of burning crosses on the front lawn of the family house on that farm. I was blessed to be able to explore this legacy in a project that collected soil of every lynching site in Alabama, as part of a community engagement effort, which eventually became an exhibition in Montgomery, Alabama. This project was a part of a larger project as well, a project meant to physically manifest the overwhelming fear, pain, and healing caused by decades of state-sanctioned racial terror that affected millions. These past few images are of the National Memorial to Peace and Justice, a project I worked on for about 3 years at a firm. The modules hanging from the ceiling represent each county with a recorded lynching. While this is a physical space you can embody, it also serves this immersive data visualization, which gives you a sense of how immense racial terror has been in this country. I also like thinking about self-expression and content creation as a way to investigate Black speculative futures, which just means I like to be nerdy while Black. So like how N.K. Jemisin does in her trilogy of dark-skinned superheroes who draw their powers from their Earth's core in her Broken Earth series. Or like a project I'm working on with my baby sister called Black Populace, a satire of an aardvark who identifies as a Black leader in the next American Revolution. So I could go on and on, but since this is meant to be short and sweet, I'll give you some insight on what I told SVA to get in here, since a random list of shit I like would not quite cut it. This is Brooklyn, Illinois. So on the east bank of the Mississippi River, directly across from St. Louis, where I went to school, sits Brooklyn, Illinois. Established in 1829, Brooklyn is the oldest African-American incorporated town in the United States. It was part of a network of settlements across the U.S. established by freed and runaway slaves during the 18th and 19th centuries when the institution of slavery was legally upheld. These spaces, known as maroon villages, are, or the more contemporary term, free colonies, or free villages, were created to escape captivity under the watchful eye and racial terror of slave owners. Free colonies often existed in secluded and hidden landscapes. However, after the Emancipation Declaration of 1865, with freedom in their grasp, Blacks morphed the notion of all Black independent towns into more visible beacons of Black life, complete with their own autonomous political, economic, and social structures, reminiscent of the hidden settlements that came before. However, these towns were mostly terrorized and violently destroyed as America transitioned from the Reconstruction era into the Jim Crow era. Initial studies implicate a vast network of these spaces across the American landscape. However, this area of research has been largely unexplored by scholars in architecture, urban planning, and history at large. Most of these towns are settlements, if mentioned at all, or towns, if mentioned at all, are simply a footnote in thick history books penned by authoritative narratives that do not make an attempt to fill in the gaps. The primary goal of my work while I'm here at DCRIT is to create a process deeply rooted in returning to Black histories that have been erased, disjointed, or misinterpreted in an effort to uncover new discoveries about the present. The research will focus on physical spaces Black people have attempted to carve out for themselves and the methodologies put into practice to ensure that these spaces would not survive. Exploring the layered complexity of people, place, and power as a legacy of this country and how it still manifests in current times will serve the foundation for the research. But I'm also very interested in interrogating African Americans' relationship to space and more pointedly, or specifically, property, an American ideal that once was propagated on the ownership of Black bodies. Thank you.